It was meant to be a weekend of adventure, a chance to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and immerse ourselves in the tranquility of nature. With backpacks loaded and spirits high, my friends and I set off for a camping trip in the remote wilderness. The first day was everything we had hoped for: clear skies, a gentle breeze, and the soothing sounds of birdsong filling the air. We found the perfect spot by a tranquil stream, set up our tents, and soon had a crackling fire going. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we gathered around the flames, sharing stories and toasting marshmallows late into the night. But as darkness fell, things began to take a sinister turn. From the depths of the forest, we heard strange sounds, cries of pain and anguish that sent shivers down our spines. At first, we dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on our ears, but the sounds grew louder and more distinct, as if someone was being tortured just beyond the trees. Unease settled over our camp like a heavy blanket, and sleep eluded us as we huddled together, listening to the eerie symphony of the night. When morning finally came, we were relieved to find ourselves still alive, but the sense of dread lingered like a foul odor in the air. As we went about our morning routine, we noticed that things were amiss: food supplies missing, equipment scattered, as if someone or something had rummaged through our belongings in the dead of night. Fear gnawed at our insides as we realized that we were not alone in the wilderness, that something sinister lurked in the shadows, watching and waiting. But the true horror came that evening as we gathered around the fire once more. In the distance, we spotted another campfire, its flames flickering in the darkness. We called out, expecting to see fellow campers, but there was no response, no sign of movement around the fire. With a sense of foreboding, we approached the foreign campfire, only to find it deserted, the flames dancing eerily in the night, and then we saw a trail of blood leading away from the fire, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. Panic set in as we realized the truth. Whatever had been making those horrifying sounds in the night, whatever had been stealing our supplies, it was still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting to strike. With trembling hands, we packed up our camp and fled into the night, haunted by the memory of our camping trip turned nightmare. The forest floor crunched satisfyingly under my boots as I hiked deeper into the Blackwood National Park. The late afternoon sun dipped below the canopy, casting long, skeletal shadows that danced across the ancient pines. This was exactly what I craved: solitude, the raw embrace of nature, a chance to disconnect from the constant buzz of city life. I reached a secluded clearing, a small gurgling stream whispering secrets nearby. Perfect. Setting up camp was familiar, a comforting ritual. My tent, a dome of emerald green, rose from the forest floor in minutes. A crackling fire soon cast a warm glow, dancing on the faces of the towering trees. Solitude can be a balm, but tonight it felt different. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the occasional snap of a twig or the rustle of unseen creatures. As darkness fully descended, the forest transformed. The friendly shadows became menacing claws. The wind carried whispered secrets. My campfire, once a cheerful beacon, now seemed a fragile island of light in a vast ocean of black. Yet there was a thrill to the fear, a primal echo in my chest. This was why I had come, to test myself against the wild. Around midnight, nature called. I doused the fire with water, leaving a bed of glowing embers, enough for a returning guide. Flashlight in hand, I ventured deeper into the trees, drawn by the burbling song of the stream. Relief washed over me with a shiver as I completed my business. Turning back, I did a double take. My campsite was a mess. Packs lay open, supplies scattered, the embers eerily dark. My stomach twisted: a bear, a raccoon gone rogue. Curiosity warring with caution, I crept closer. The beam of my flashlight danced across the mayhem, revealing the culprit: 2 men. They wore dark clothing, their faces obscured by shadows. One yanked on the zipper of my first aid kit, muttering in a language I didn't understand. My blood ran cold. What were they looking for? Panic gnawed at me. My first instinct was to flee, but the men didn't seem to have noticed me yet. Instead, driven by morbid fascination, I found myself drawn in. taking refuge in the hulking form of a nearby oak. I pressed myself against its rough bark, becoming one with the darkness. Then, a sentence from their conversation pierced the night air, sharp and horrifying. "These organs won't last long," one hissed, his voice laced with urgency. "We need to find him, find someone fresh." My breath hitched. This wasn't a prank, it wasn't a break-in. These were men engaged in a sinister trade, a trade that used people as mere commodities. Terror choked me. I had to get away. But how? As if sensing my fear, the ground shifted beneath my feet. A twig snapped. In the sudden silence, the sound echoed like a gunshot. The men stopped talking, their heads whipping around to search the darkness. It was now or never. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I fumbled with the safety on my flashlight. My fingers, slick with sweat, betrayed me. Just as I managed to flick it on, a guttural yell ripped from one of the men. My beam caught his face, a predatory grin etched beneath menacing eyes. I didn't scream. Survival flooded my senses. I dropped the flashlight, the clatter swallowed by the hungry darkness. The men froze, momentarily disoriented. Their confusion was my window. With a burst of adrenaline, I launched myself into the dense undergrowth, pushing through prickly bushes and snapping branches without a care. They recovered quickly, their shouts echoing through the night, urging me on. I could practically feel their hot breaths on my neck, the sound of their boots pounding after me. Every fallen log, every tangle of roots became a hurdle, a test of survival. The forest floor blurred beneath my feet. Twice I tripped, scraping my skin raw, but never stopping. I tasted blood and dirt, but my only focus was on putting distance between them and me. My lungs burned, my muscles screamed, but I pushed on, fueled by primal fear. Then, through the darkness, I glimpsed a faint light. Hope surged through me. The park ranger's cabin. It had been miles away from my campsite, but somewhere in my blind flight, I had stumbled onto salvation. With a final burst of energy, I clambered up the steep embankment behind the cabin, praying I wouldn't be seen. I pounded on the rough wooden door, screaming for help. The world tilted around me, exhaustion threatening to claim me. Finally, a creak. The door swung open, revealing a weary ranger. In the stillness of the night, as the campfire crackled and the stars twinkled above, my sister and I settled into our tent, weary from a day of hiking through the rugged wilderness. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and a sense of peace washed over us as we prepared to drift off to sleep. But just as we were about to succumb to the embrace of slumber, a strange noise echoed through the forest, a low, guttural sound that sent a shiver down my spine. My sister and I exchanged wary glances, but we brushed it off as nothing more than the rustling of leaves in the wind or the hoot of an owl in the distance. As we nestled into our sleeping bags, the darkness of the night enveloped us like a heavy blanket. But as I closed my eyes, a sense of unease gnawed at my insides, a feeling that something was not quite right in the world outside our tent. And then, in the inky blackness of the night, I saw a shadowy figure lurking just beyond the edge of our campsite. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the truth. It was a bear, massive and menacing, its dark fur glistening in the moonlight as it prowled around our tent, sniffing and snuffling with curiosity. Fear clenched my stomach as I lay frozen in my sleeping bag, my sister trembling beside me. We knew we were no match for the wild beast outside our tent, and so we lay still, hoping against hope that it would lose interest and move on. Minutes stretched into eternity as we waited in silence, the sound of the bear's heavy breathing mingling with the pounding of my heart in my ears. And then, mercifully, it seemed to lose interest, shuffling away into the darkness with a final snort of indifference. Relief flooded through me as I realized we had escaped unscathed, but that feeling was short-lived. When we emerged from our tent at first light, we were met with a scene of devastation. Our campsite was in ruins, our belongings strewn about like discarded toys. But it was the sight of our food supplies, gone without a trace, that sent a chill down my spine. The bear had not only invaded our camp, but it had also stolen our means of survival, leaving us stranded in the wilderness with nothing to sustain us. With our campsite in shambles and our food stolen, my sister and I faced a grim reality. We were stranded in the wilderness with no way to fend for ourselves. But just as despair threatened to overwhelm us, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. As we ventured deeper into the forest in search of help, we stumbled upon another group of campers, their tents pitched in a nearby clearing. Relief flooded through me as I approached them, explaining our predicament and pleading for assistance. To our immense relief, the fellow campers were kind and compassionate, offering us food, shelter, and a way to contact the authorities. With their help, we were able to navigate our way back to civilization, putting an end to our harrowing ordeal in the wilderness. As we bid farewell to our newfound friends and climbed into the safety of a waiting vehicle, I couldn't help but feel grateful for their kindness and generosity. Without their help, who knows what might have become of us in the unforgiving wilderness.